Hey everyone, Mike Mooney M20J here with a bit of a story to share. Unfortunately don't have any footage to show about it. Wasn't recording any video when this happened, but a bit of excitement went on this flight. Not the good kind, but I was telling the story to my wife and she encouraged me to go on and talk about it on video anyway, in case it brings up some discussion and helps others. So I was flying back to Linden, my home airport, in my Mooney M20J from central Jersey, where I had just picked up fuel. Pretty routine fuel flight to get the plane topped off in preparation for my trip to Canada coming up this 4th of July weekend. I have a video about that in a few weeks once I get back. But as for today, I about 15 miles out from Linden, switch to CTAF, 10 miles out, call 10 miles west of Linden, landing 27, 5 miles out, make a call, and next I'm on downwind, more or less abeam the 9 numbers, and I look to my left, which would be kind of the northwest, and there is a Cirrus SR20 or 22 gray and blue Cirrus coming right for me at about a 45-degree angle to my position. So I'm on downwind, and the Cirrus is between me and the runway, about a 45, a little bit higher, descending and coming toward me. Not much of a descent. He was probably only about 50 feet above. Pattern altitude at Linden's about 800, but he's approaching and coming in from behind me. I mean, I saw him very clearly. I would think he should be able to see me very clearly from that position. More clearly than I, because I had to look kind of to my side and behind to see him. Looking over and seeing that Cirrus quickly approaching me at almost the same altitude, descending slightly down toward where I am, heading right for me, had me real shook up. This was really close. This is probably the closest call I've had in all of my flying. This was like comparable to being in maybe route position or even closer in formation flight. And of course this was not a formation flight, and this plane was coming right at me, so it had me pretty shook up seeing this coming up so close. It was so close, in fact, I could clearly see the blue and white, blue and gray colors of the Cirrus airplane. And then I see him pulling onto downwind, still very, very close behind me. So the first thing I did was throw in more power to speed up and pull away. I didn't want to make any turns, because if he was not exactly behind me, if he was just slightly off, making a turn would slow me down and actually help him catch up to me. So at that point I figured that the best course of action was to throw the black and blue red knobs inward and pick up some speed and increase the distance and separation before doing anything else. As soon as I was starting to pull away from the Cirrus and can look over my shoulder and see the distance increasing, I got on the radio and said, Cirrus, you're right up behind a Mooney. And he responded to this, and this is the very, very first time I've heard anything from him on CTAF on the radio. He said that he's slowing down. So he didn't acknowledge whether or not he saw me, but he did acknowledge that he's going to slow down. So that was a good start. Now, to make things easier for both myself and the Cirrus, myself, that I don't want to have the Cirrus on my butt so close behind, and make it easier for the Cirrus not to have to, do a go-around or fly in so close behind me on final, what I elected to do was turn in base a bit closer, a bit tighter than I normally would. Normally I would go just a bit over the turnpike before turning base, and here I am, on the other hand, turning base inside the New Jersey Turnpike, pretty tight base leg, figuring I might not end up on the first third of the runway, but I'll land a little maybe long and pull off, but that'll help him out as well. We'll get everyone on the ground without too much distraction. So I just turned base. I announce on CTAF that I'm on base leg. And again, I'm looking back to see, how far is that Cirrus behind me. I want to make sure I see him pass me on the downwind leg, so that I have assurance that he's not going to catch up with me on final. Well, I look behind me over my shoulder, I see the Cirrus on downwind, and I see him start turning. What the heck is he doing? And it looks like, is he really going to do this? Is he really turning base leg inside of me to cut me off? And, you know, I'm thinking, you know, maybe he's going to leave the pattern. Maybe he's going to do a 360. What is he doing? So I get on CTAF and I say, Cirrus, what are you doing? Again, keep in mind, this is all seconds apart. This is not taking a very long time. You've got two fast airplanes on downwind with a tailwind. Things are happening pretty quick. Not a lot of time to sit around and chat. A lot of my attention is diverted to, you know, fly the plane. Don't forget to put the wheels down. Look at what the Cirrus is doing. You know, not so much time to just chit-chat about everything going on. Did remember to put my gear down. That was a high priority on my list. Not to get too distracted by the traffic to mess up my own things, but trying to keep things quick out of courtesy. Anyway, I'm on base leg. I look behind me and there's the Cirrus turning base inside of me. Again, close. Not as close as the first close call, but again, not even a quarter mile. I mean, I can pretty well see the Cirrus. He's close. And if I'm flying a tight pattern, I don't know what he is flying. And he, in response to my query, Cirrus, what are you doing? Says Cirrus turning base. And at this point, this is just like a major facepalm to me. You know, how is this possible? You know, why is this guy in such a hurry to get on the ground ahead of me? You know, I sure hope that it wasn't Cirrus trying to intercept me like the hero in the video that we've all seen online recently of a Cirrus trying to intercept an Arrow information flight without permission that was having an issue. I don't know if that's a thing with Cirruses these days. I certainly hope not. But here he is turning base inside of me, quite close, again setting up another tight call hazard. So at this point, I don't know how to salvage this pattern and land safely anymore at this point. If I try to turn final, I'm going to turn into him. If you know, either I'll catch up to him or the separation won't be enough to be able to land on the runway. So I say, in quite frustration at this point, I say, Mooney going around for the Cirrus Jerk. I just couldn't resist the frustration at this point. The first near miss, he didn't see me, I didn't see him until the last moment. Maybe he didn't hear my call, I didn't hear his call. Now, in retrospect, I never heard a call from the Cirrus prior to this. Maybe he didn't hear me either, for whatever reason. You know, if he doesn't have his radio on the right frequency, or whatever else is going on, didn't hear each other. See and avoid has to take precedence over that. So, you know, he should have been able to see me coming in, you know, perpendicular, but I understand visibility's not as good out the right side, things like this. Working it out the first time, you know, my bad, your bad, let's make this pattern work. But getting cut off in the pattern a second time, being forced to go around, you know, for no reason, was really frustrating. So I let off a bit of frustration at that moment. Again, no time to really discuss, hey, how come you cut me off in the pattern? Didn't you see me out on the base leg? Didn't you hear me announce? No time to say that, so just out of frustration I threw that one word in there. But I extended the base to go past the runway 27 and set up parallel to the runway on the upwind. So instead of flying over the runway, and again being in close proximity to the Cirrus, I elected to shoot past the numbers and establish on a upwind leg parallel to the runway and to the side to create more separation with that Cirrus. I was able to watch the Cirrus land at my about 9 to 8 o'clock. He was just slightly behind at that point, probably because he slowed down, but you know, just again shows that there was not any reasonable separation to be able to have two planes in the pattern and landing at the same time in this case. As I continued on the upwind leg, I continued to monitor and watch that Cirrus as he was landing to make sure that he touches down and exits the runway before I come around for another pattern. I didn't want to have a situation where he's doing a go-around and now I'm having to follow him or have him follow me around a tight pattern yet again. But after he touches down and exits the runway, he said sarcastically, "Cirrus Jerk clear of 27 at Linden," which you know, made me realize that I don't think he was really too open to discussion, and you know, also indicated that he didn't have some kind of pressing emergency that had to have him cut me off in the pattern to land first. Continued on the upwind until I saw the Cirrus clear the runway, turn crosswind, downwind, base, and back to final for an uneventful landing. But I was pretty shook up coming around the pattern. I was really especially mindful to make sure I put the wheels down, because these are the kind of situations that throw you off your game and get you distracted. Saw the Cirrus shut down and park on the transient ramp, realizing that he's not from this airport and you know, his lack of attentiveness to the situation, you know, in the air, made me just kind of decide to not talk to him and go further. If it seemed like he was interested even in what happened, doesn't have to be that he can think I'm at fault and that I'm wrong. I can think he's wrong. It doesn't really matter whose fault it is. If both people are interested in safety and interested in, you know, how to help each other understand the situation and, you know, figure out who had the problem, then I think a discussion is valuable and there can be some learning. But in this case, that didn't feel to be the case. I was kind of busy. I had things I had to do. Had to take care of some stuff on my plane, so I didn't really bother to try to talk to him, but had these thoughts in my mind, so I figured I'd open up and share them on YouTube and see what your thoughts are, see what you would have done. But you know, in retrospect, somebody's got to do something. Ideally, both airplanes should be looking out, both airplanes should be listening on CTAF, both airplanes should be talking on CTAF. If everyone's doing their part, everything should work out just smoothly. But when someone isn't doing their part, and it might not be deliberate, it could be they're on the wrong frequency, it could be that their radio isn't working, it could be the other guy's radio isn't receiving. There's a lot of reasons that these things can happen. You still have to fall back to basics, you still have to see and avoid. That's very important. Some planes don't have radios, some planes have a broken radio or on the wrong frequency, so you still got to look out. And you got to fly the plane predictably, you know, make the turns in the places where you'd expect to be, you know, you'd expect someone else to be turning. If you're making an unpredictable pattern, then if the radio isn't working out, other people aren't going to know what you're doing. And then finally, if all that fails, you just got to, you know, do what it takes to, you know, save both planes, because if the other guy isn't going to do it, then it's up to you, you know, to prevent that from happening. So in this case, even though I should have had right of way being lower, being further along the pattern, both at the first near miss and the second near miss on base, at this point with the other pilot doing unpredictable things, it was just better to get out of the way, go around the pattern, come in behind him when I already know he's off the runway, and not create any further conflict. If he had an emergency or trouble, you know, let him have the runway, and we can always figure it out and talk about it later. Hopefully, I hope that hope that wasn't the case. But you know, if someday I'm having a problem, my electric system failed and my engine's going kaput, and I have to cut in front of someone to land on the runway, hopefully they'll also have the sense to go around and let the guy who really needs to be on the ground have it first. So that's my thoughts. You can let me know what you think. I'll probably talk about this on Mooney Space as well. Just finished filing my NASA report. In over 1,600 hours of aviating, this is probably the very closest I've come or been near another airplane, not in deliberate formation flight, not by prearrangement. Maybe excluding gliders, but excluding gliders in formation flight, this is probably the closest call I've had. So it happened only about 2.5 hours ago, so I'm still a little bit shook up about it, but figured put that out there while it's still fresh in my mind, and hopefully raise some thoughts and help others avoid having a similar predicament. So thanks for watching. I'll be flying to Canada for the July 4th weekend and having some hopefully interesting footage coming back from there soon, and you'll be able to track my flights and check those out by following me on Mooney Space if you're interested. Mooney 201 on YouTube, Mooney 201 on Mooney Space. So thanks for watching.